After the action scene, we see most of the main cast trying to explain to Tanaka that they saw the ape man, and Tanaka does a reasonably convincing job pretending he doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. Then Sachiko just kind of repeats her monologue from the opening again about Azuma. She may as well repeat it word for word, and it's kind of insulting they felt the need to remind us a second time that her fiancé was the original ape man, because it's pretty much her entire character. In the middle of Sachiko's monologue, Ape Man shows up wearing his Hazama outfit, and he gets a dig in at the police detective, pointing out that the police detective has not managed to find Tony Gleck or his body, so we can assume Tony Gleck is alive because this is an anime. And we do know Tony Gleck was at least part cyborg from that last encounter, so it's not that much of a stretch, really.
What's she doing here? Don't tell me this is the way you guys protect your witnesses.
Why look at me, pal? That's not my job.
No, you're too busy covering up for cops like Tony Gleck when they go haywire.
You!
It wasn't their fault. I forced Ichiro to let me go along for the ride.
That was stupid. It could have been your last ride.
Even though Ape Man has a perfectly valid point that Tony Gleck is still around and could have easily come after Sachiko again, everyone acts like he's a huge asshole for the way he worded his statement. I mean, it's a pretty serious issue, so the way he worded it seems reasonable enough to me. Like, she did do something stupid. I know people don't like hearing that, but it's kind of important, isn't it? Am I just, like, lacking social graces here?
Listen, Buster, it seems to me the only reason I got caught up in this mess is because of you, so unless you're a complete cad, you ought to be responsible for protecting me.
I'm not quite sure I follow your logic there, Sachiko, and it's actually quite dangerous for him to be the one protecting you because he was the one Tony Gleck seemed to actually be after. And, you know, this is just a bad idea in general. And then after Ape Man drives off with Sachiko, we learn about Hazuma's backstory in the least respectful way possible. Like, it's just straight up exposition. No apologies exposition.
You're saying he killed 7 detectives?
No, 4 of them were hired goons of an underground crime boss. We think the 3 cops were on the boss's payroll, too.
Now, hold on a second, Chief. That's just his story. It was never proven that those detectives were dirty.
No, it wasn't. The inquest's findings were inconclusive.
Is that why he's got such a grudge against the police department?
They murdered the man's fiancée while they held him down and forced him to watch. Not the type of thing that you forgive and forget easy.
I mean, there had to be a more natural way to word that dialogue, right? A more natural way to word that exposition so that it sounded human and didn't just sound like the scriptwriters really wanted you to understand what happened to Hazama so they could set up the themes of the film. But regardless of how they did it, we know why Hazama hated the police now.
From here, it looks like a picture postcard, doesn't it? So pretty and peaceful. I forget what a cruel, violent place the city can be.
Sounds like you've been living a sheltered life. You should get out more often.
What?
Sorry. Look, I'm sorry about all of this. I never meant for you to get mixed up in it. Now, thanks to me, it seems like you're a target too.
That man in the photograph, Eddie Schmidt, what's he supposed to have done?
He walked out of a government research center with a bunch of top-secret documents and cyborg technology. And I'm supposed to get him back. Very hot stuff, this cyborg business. It was developed for medical purposes. You know, prosthetic devices and artificial limbs, stuff like that.
And now?
Now it's being used to turn every street punk into a one-man army. Problem is, they found that the human brain requires huge doses of stimulants to keep up with any cyborg implant.
Like drugs, you mean?
Right. A potent little number called cybomecamine that has the unfortunate side effect of stimulating sociopathologically aggressive behavior and giving whoever's using it an overwhelming sense of invulnerability. You see, I've done my homework.
This exposition is a lot more believable because it's clear this is Ape Man talking now and not Hazama. Firstly, his mannerisms are entirely different, as is his vocabulary, and from the way he speaks, it's clear Hazama didn't have this information before, and Ape Man was probably briefed on it. This is kind of suspicious to Sachiko, and when she brings it up, he makes a not-so-graceful save.
So why didn't you tell me this before?
Well, it's not the sort of thing that comes up on a first date.
And for some reason, Sachiko just kind of accepts that as an answer, and, you know, I can understand. It's been established Sachiko's stupid. I've got that now, but Why did Ape-Man even tell her that in the first place? What is his benefit to her knowing that?
And you think the company's involved?
Isn't Biotechno heavy into pharmaceuticals and cyborg development?
I can't believe it. You're saying the corporation I work for is running a black market in robot implants and mind-altering drugs, and selling them to killers like that crooked cop Tony Gleck? If this is true, it's gotta be someone working on his own, behind management's back. You've got to let me help you in your investigation.
And there's your answer. We do have to remember, I know it's been a while, but Sachiko is the closest thing to a lead right now, so if telling her this information gets Ape-Man inside of Biotechno without getting the alarms tripped, then I guess mission accomplished. Anyway, it's time for a transition to something completely different.
I understand a new cyborg has appeared on the scene, someone calling himself Ape-Man.
We're just kind of dropped into this creepy mob boss's headquarters. He calls himself Mr. Halloween, and we can see that Tony Gleck is associated with him. Tony Gleck is established to work directly for Mr. Halloween, and now he learns that Hazuma's body is still moving around and obviously doesn't understand that Hazuma is actually dead and Hazuma's body is being piloted by Ape-Man, so he just thinks it's Hazuma. We also get an introduction to Tony's unique trauma, further setting up the themes of the film. Because Mr. Halloween's a dick and triggered some sort of chip that makes Tony freak the fuck out with pain.
Who put you back together, Tony? More than that, who rebuilt you better than ever? I created that machine that is your body, and I hate it when one of my machines has to be recalled for repairs. It makes my work so much more difficult.
You know, something about that Mr. Halloween guy, I feel like we've seen someone with his exact hair shape and body type before. And I can only think of one person who runs a company that specializes in both cybernetics and drug development who would have the resources to create a cyborg like Tony Gleck. And that person kind of looks a lot like this Mr. Halloween character. This Mr. Halloween character is also obsessed with toys, and if I recall correctly, the head of that corporation made a toy replica of the entire city? I don't know.
Maybe this isn't such a good idea.
Use your head. This isn't some abandoned warehouse you can just pick a lock and walk into. Without me to cover for you, you won't even get past surveillance.
Lady, you're out of your mind. But I've got to admit, I really admire your spunk.
Good evening, Sachiko Yokogawa. Please identify accompanying party and nature of visit.
He's an account exec with Marcos Advertising. We're just picking up a couple of marketing reports.
Name?
Hashiba.
Proceed.
Well, hot damn, that was easy. They try looking in the computer database for any traces of Eddie Schmidt, but understandably nothing comes up because, you know, Daigo wouldn't have the Eddie Schmidt files just kind of lying around where anyone could find them with a search. So Ape-Man's like, hey, why don't you make me a cup of coffee and I'll try searching, and Sachiko just actually does that so Ape-Man can plug himself into the computer. I get that the film's building up to the idea, slowly building up granted, but building up to the idea that people are made by their traumas, but I still feel like Sachiko should probably have other character traits besides the one who was married to the original Ape-Man. That's like all she is.
How did you trigger the alarm?
Watch yourself, it's gas! Hold your breath!
Fucking goddamn it, Sachiko! So Ape-Man escapes and carries Sachiko's unconscious body out, which is convenient because now Sachiko can't know that Hazuma's the Ape-Man. Well, I mean, Hazuma isn't the Ape-Man, Hazuma is dead, and the Ape-Man is wearing Hazuma's skin. But still, she's unconscious, so it's very convenient in that she doesn't know.